and let us all do we can to build a better future.
So, Lauren, before we went live, I explained to you the details of TYT, their ongoing beef with Jimmy Dore, the failure of the Justice Democrats. I gave Lauren a history lesson of something that all of you know all too well.
The drama is real.
Not only is the drama real, but also, again, I think it's something that we've been saying on the show for some time. Looks like Jimmy Dore was correct. Again. Jimmy Dore was right. Again. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, a lot of YouTube channels, a lot of independent media networks have been calling out the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party, but also the hypocrisy of TYT, where they've carried water for the Justice Democrats, ignoring them, not really calling them out, because let's face it, they give performative arts, they say tweets and messages that we can agree with.
Yeah, we agree with the tweets.
Tweets are not that bad, but actions speak louder than words. And when Jimmy Dore, as well as Justin Jackson, Cornel West, Dr. Cornel West, Brianna Joy Gray, and so many others in January of 2021 did that live stream town hall where 100,000 plus people attended to, again, call for a force to vote, I want to remind everyone before that live stream happened, there was a small window where Cenk Uygur, TYT, and Majority Report agreed with force to vote in principle. But then somehow someone might have given them a phone call and then they flipped on it like that and said, oh, force to vote's a bad idea. We got to keep our powder dry. The Justice Democrats, the Progressive Democrats, the Congressional Progressive Caucus will fight for Medicare for all, but now's not the time. We got to keep our powder dry. Jimmy Dore's a troublemaker. All these people who are calling out the Justice Democrats and the hypocrisy of the Democrats, you're troublemakers. You're secret Trump supporters. You're antagonists. You're just doing this all for clicks. But oh, what happened just a few days ago? Roe v. Wade could potentially be overturned.
Yep.
And we're going to be talking about it on the show as well. But also on top of that too, this is happening under a Democratic administration. And a lot of people brought up the fact that, look, there were numerous opportunities under Bill Clinton's presidential administration, Obama's presidential administration, and even Biden's administration, the Biden-Harris administration, could have codified Roe v. Wade. They could have made it happen. There was nothing stopping them, really, in theory. They could have done so if they wanted to, but they didn't. And now we're seeing these same House progressives also trying to, again, fix their image, make themselves look right, and it's not working anymore. And TYT had their little spat where they said they don't believe in the Democrats anymore. But I want to pull up this wonderful video that I saw on Twitter. A few of our colleagues shared it with me. And it's a compilation video of Anna recently calling out the Democratic Party for its hypocrisy, including the progressives. But then also added in there is her smearing and disrespecting Jimmy Dore. But see, when you look at those video segments, all that's not aging well, because we've been saying this about the House Progressive Democrats. They're not taking the initiative to lead. They're following the party leadership, and nothing has fundamentally changed. Don't believe me? Let's play that video.
This full-on attack by individuals on YouTube, on Patreon, presenting themselves as part of the left while simultaneously viciously attacking both the squad, but more importantly, people like Nina Turner. All of the bootlickers for the Democratic Party get so upset at me for telling the truth about how ineffective and pathetic Democratic lawmakers are. Go ahead and cry about it. That includes the squad. I don't care anymore. So while they obsess about us and while they obsess about attacking progressive lawmakers who are our best bet in getting something done in Congress, and what do Democrats do? Do they do anything to prepare for it, to strategize, to ensure that they mitigate the damage that's done by right-wingers in this country? No, they're too busy fundraising. That includes the squad. I don't care anymore. And the fact that he's been a wrecking ball to progressives, and especially people like Nina Turner, who's been a fighter for Medicare for all, tells you everything you need to know about him. Period. Him and his clan. No, the reason why I go after Democrats is because A, they deserve it, and B, they deceive us. They lie to us, and they tell us that they're gonna fight for us, and they do the exact opposite. They fold immediately. Now keep in mind that Jimmy Dore doesn't believe that anyone within the Democratic Party is ever gonna do anything good for the progressive movement. He doesn't believe that a single one of them is actually gonna fight for Medicare for all. And they tell us that they're gonna fight for us, and they do the exact opposite. They fold immediately. That includes the squad. I don't care anymore. But of course, Bernie Sanders didn't go on Jimmy Dore's show, so he's super salty about that, and has been on the warpath against Bernie and other progressive lawmakers ever since. People who are willing to pick up the slack for these disgusting, feckless, corrupt politicians. That includes the squad. I don't care anymore. We share this with you guys because it's important to know who the hucksters are and who the genuine fighters for change in this country are. And I think that these types of situations make it abundantly clear. Whereas the Democrats, hey, Nancy, how's your refrigerator doing? How's your luxury ice cream doing? I bet you do, Nancy. I bet you do. Yeah. Without the strong Republicans, how would you fundraise? You pathetic, pathetic corporate goon. I'm sure he's watching this and I'm sure he's screaming at the TV, screaming at the computer, probably screaming at his wife as well because he's been real good at doing that, both on his own show and when he worked here in the studio.
Fuckface.
There you go. All right. Again,
Oh, no.
again, there was a wonderful angel who made that video of that compilation. But look, you know, when I gave you the little short history of it,
Right.
yeah, it's sad to see the state where TYT has gone to, but they took that Katzenberg cash money, and since they did that, they've been carrying water for Justice Democrats, the Democratic Party as a whole, telling us that we got to vote for Biden. Even earlier on, telling us we got to vote for Hillary Clinton. Now, of course, yes, they were going to bat for Bernie Sanders, but even then, here and there, it's all been nothing but wishy-washy stuff because these progressive lawmakers, these Democrats, they just don't know how to fight. And so, is it wrong for us to shine a light on them? Yes, we know what to say about the Republican Party. I mean, that's low-hanging fruit at this point.
Yeah.
I know what to expect from the GOP. Absolutely nothing. The only thing authentic that I can expect from a GOP lawmaker is a middle finger to my face. And that's honesty right there. With the Democratic Party, I'm getting smiles, laughs, we'll vote, we'll fight for you. And they do nothing. So is it wrong for Jimmy Dore to call them out? Is it wrong for Jimmy Dore to call out the Young Turks for them carrying water for the Democratic Party and anyone else? Because what is the excuse for voting Democrat? I don't know, Lauren, your thoughts.
I mean, at this point, no, he's absolutely not wrong to call them out. He should call them out because people need to, especially when, again, all we're getting is lip service on Twitter. It's like everyone's so angry all the time. You know, Elizabeth Warren had her whole little rant that she did.
Yes.
It's like people, they're angry and they're so angry on Maine, you know, to borrow like whatever. Like they're so angry on Maine and like they're not doing anything beyond that though. They're just saying they're angry and being like, we're going to fight we're going to do this. It's like, but you have never, ever, ever, ever. When was the last time you actually fought for something? And not just made an impassioned speech on the steps of the Capitol or like a rant on Twitter or like, when was the last time you actually did anything? They're not. So no, he's absolutely right to call them out and call out the people who have been defending everything.
At this point, I hope that this midterm election cycle will be different, but we're not done with videos because I'm glad you brought up the Capitol, but I'm glad you brought up, making a scene and everything else because in early 2021, there was an incident where AOC and Cori Bush did a little live stream on Instagram and on Twitter where apparently they couldn't stop Congress from adjourning, so they had to run quickly to stop Nancy because I guess they might have forgot from adjourning Congress, but when Nancy adjourned Congress, millions of Americans were, and still are, mind you, at risk of being evicted from their homes and apartments.
Right. So
AOC and Cori Bush, their infamous, sit-in front of Capitol Hill protests that they did. Now, again, a lot of those protesters were protected because AOC and Cori Bush were there. But I want to pull up this video again of this performative art that, again, TYT praised AOC and Cori Bush for doing, but nothing changed. And I want to give a shout out to one Frank Analysis. I asked him, hey, where's that video at? I want to bookmark it so I can use it to bring this up here. Because, again, here we're seeing another performative art from the squad members. People are still being evicted from their homes and apartments, by the way. This is in January. This is a little bit after January of 2021. This is like in the year of 2021. But again, everyone, let's play it. Shout out again to Frank Analysis. This is the person who filmed it.
Forgiven.
None of that matters.
Will people's rent be forgiven?
We're going to figure that out.
Of course.
What are you going to do? So
I'll keep pressuring.
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
So here's what we're going to do. The CDC just announced an eviction moratorium, and what we're here is for our reasons known and unknown. So our reasons known was to make sure that we extended this moratorium. That's what we're here to do.
This is only ceasefire. This is only ceasefire. This is not a victory. People still owe money. People still owe money. People still owe money. No, this is only ceasefire. People still owe money. What are we gonna do in 90 days? You're acting like this is a victory when people still owe money.
Yeah, we're gonna keep working.
What are you going to do? You charged us. What are you going to do?
Hold your corporate colleagues accountable. They're giving money to Israel, an apartheid state, when they could be using that money to forget people's rent.
Come on, give it up for a minute.
Victory, but we all have to keep pushing together.
That's right. Then don't stop coming out. Keep showing up for 90 days straight.
We can keep showing up, but we...
Then let's do it. Let's not stop. Let's not only rely on
I agree,
them.
but they are exhausted and we need to help them.
Then let's keep doing. Then we need to not rely on leaders.
Mic check! Mic check! Mic check! Thank you all. Real quick, tensions are starting to escalate. Someone says real quick. The overall sentiment here is we can take a pause to appreciate the efforts that we've all collectively put together and accomplished.
So that corporations can scheme in the meantime.
Like the Congressmen have said, the work is still not done, and that requires us to be here. Everyone keeps asking, what should we do now? We're going to keep here. We're going to stay here until the rest of the work gets done.
We're not buying the theatrics. We're not buying the theatrics.
You're just one person.
No, I'm not one person. My man right there. We have 137 people watching.
137
yes.
people. Damn.
Rude.
Shout out to Frank Analysis, who got that film. Buddy, you were not alone. We're all with you now. And see, that's performative art that we saw from AOC and Cori Bush. Look.
I like that they just ignored his questions.
Well, see, the thing is, he was asking the correct question because, folks, let's have democracy in the chat right now. Let's have democracy in the chat. All right? This is going to be an open wound, and I apologize for those that will feel hurt by this one. Type 1, if you know and have seen people or seen examples that are still happening now of people being evicted from their homes and apartments still. Type 2 if you haven't seen anything like that, and AOC and Cori Bush just solved that problem right away. Because I know I'm seeing people get evicted from their homes. I know I'm seeing it in Chicago. So it's still happening. Well, we'll see how it all turns out. It's the voting. I know, democracy, foreign concept. I also want to acknowledge a YouTube super chat that we did get from CoolBlue71. As I mentioned months ago, and I remember this, Republicans lead, Democrats manage. The latest was the Roe v. Wade, and we'll talk about this later on the show. And this U.S. Supreme Court are all the Democrats managing again. Now, I'm not going to vote Democrat. I'm not going to tell all of you to vote. I'm not going to tell all my team to vote either. I'm not going to tell anyone what to do. Make your own decision. But I have covered too many stories on this show of seeing the failures of, one, the Republican Party. I'll never vote Republican. But also the failures of the Democratic Party and how they have helped the Democrats, or again, do nothing. The GOP, the Democrats, they're all friends. They're all friends with each other. So I want to pull up this video of Cenk Uygur. Again, this is absolute hypocrisy right here. Cenk Uygur, who ran a campaign, got smeared by the Democrats, and Anita Turner, not once but twice, ran her campaign for the Ohio 11th Congressional District. They're going to be saying things we agree with, but at this point, Nina, Cenk, you're late to the game. The Democratic Party don't like either one of you two, and yet you have carried water for the Democratic Party, and it's embarrassing. Let's play this video.
Nancy Pelosi huffs and puffs and makes public speeches about how she wants to get Roe back as law in this country. But meanwhile, fights with all of her being in a race that she has no business in South Texas for an anti-choice candidate. She's fighting tooth and nail to make sure that there's another vote to take away women's rights. Wouldn't that make her a giant liar and a hypocrite?
Oh, hypocrisy is, again, nothing new to neoliberals, and people should recognize that you can't do both of these things. This man is the total antithesis of it without, there's no a half measure on where he stands. He is the antithesis of this at a most pivotal time in this country's history when it comes to Roe v. Wade. And so, yeah, it is hypocrisy. That is what it is. And people should see it for what it is and call it out for what it is and not be afraid to equivocate. We can't be mad at the Supreme Court, but then think it's okay for people like Clyburn and Pelosi to be in that state railing against a candidate that is standing up for women's right to choose. You can't have both. Learn that on Sesame Street when they do the segment on shapes. One of these things don't belong. Okay, all that we learned in kindergarten. One of these things don't belong, and what they are doing right now is wrong. But Jink, I'll tell you this. Corporatist Democrats will do anything, even locking arms with corporatist Republicans if it comes down to hurting progressives, freedom-fighting progressives. That is for sure, and that is why they are down there.
Right. So, Nina, you bring up the point of when these things don't belong. It's progressives and independents that don't belong in the Democratic Party. I think they've made their statement very clear on that one.
But that they don't have any of the same values. They need to actually just be like, yeah, we actually are our own party. And I know we've had a bunch of people kind of, fading away from the Democrats and saying, I'm an independent now. We need more of that because the Democrats they're all centrists, all of them.
Agreed. And the thing is, you have Nancy going to bat for a pro-life Democrat. We got one more video of Janky and friends, Nina specifically, talking about the Democratic Party. Hang on, folks. Look, just because I sat through it, you're going to sit through it too. All right, so let's enjoy it together.
Nina, you talked about how, you said you might embarrass them for the lack of action that they're taking and for the fact that they're following their corporate donors. Now, the Democratic establishment in Washington says, no, they've done plenty. You don't get voting rights, and they're never going to vote on it again. You don't get $15 minimum wage, and they're never going to vote on it again. And by the way, on women's rights, they're not going to bother trying to take away the filibuster, which means it has no chance of passing, and they know that. Do you think that that's somehow being more democratic to give up on all of those democratic priorities?
No, less democratic in terms of what this party is supposed to stand for. I think there are two major parties in this country. Obviously, I'm not saying anything that is new to anyone. The point is that one of these parties should be working on behalf of the people who need it the most. And that is not to let the recalcitrants and the mayhem of the Republicans, let's not let them off the hook. But my party has the majority in both chambers and they have the presidency and they need to act like it. People are literally dying. They're losing their livelihood. They're losing their lives. Millions of people have died from COVID. If we had had universal health care in this country, we might have been able to save more lives. So it is things like that, increasing the minimum wage as you laid out there, that the Democrats could have done and still can do before November to ensure that Democrats are changing material conditions and giving the people something they can feel for real instead of tweeting all the time as if they are powerless. They're not powerless. They have the power. The people gave it to them in 2020.
Okay, again, actions speak louder than words. Nina, Cenk, you both were screwed over by the Democratic Party. You have carried water for the Democratic Party. And yeah, you might have occasionally from time to time call out the corporate Democrats. You're still running the party. So the thing is, I want to make very clear. Don't vote for these Democratic lawmakers or these Republican lawmakers. If anything, vote independent, vote third party. But it's more than just electoral politics, because I know a lot of our audience has been burnt out by electoral politics. In fact, let's have democracy in the chat one more time. Type 3, if you're burnt out by electoral politics and you just don't give a damn. Type 4 is like, I'll still partake into it, right? But here's the thing. Let's look at worker movements, the building of worker co-ops, the building of unions, the building of activists and groups actually pushing forward, getting state initiative and ballot initiatives passed. Let's actually look at building something like that, because if we can't get anything done in DC, there are other pathways to get things done. But relying on politicians in Washington, D.C. is a fool's dream. I want to pull up this tweet here from Cenk, because again, he just can't stop really holding blame even to conservatives. Because again, I find this as, again, typical TYT behavior. Yeah, you could blame the GOP and Fox News. But see, the Democrats have been contributing to this, Cenk. And they've been doing it for a long time, and you've been carrying water for them too. So let's pull up this tweet here. Is Fox News audience so unintelligent they really can't tell that people like Tulsi Gabbard or Glenn Greenwald aren't at all on the left anymore? Do they really think, look, even the left wing agrees with us? Is this old trick Tucker Carlson has been playing on them still working? And to which I have to counter with Jank, well, hey, Dr. Cornel West has been on Tucker Carlson's show, Jimmy Dore, and so many other leftists and progressive thinkers have been on Tucker Carlson's show, because let's face it, Fox News is the most popular of all the repugnant corporate media outlets, but also Tucker Carlson has a popular show. And I want to be very clear, there's a million things I disagree with Tucker Carlson, but if you have an audience and you have a chance to speak out your mind, he lets his guests speak their minds out. So, Jank, why don't you go on Tucker Carlson's show and actually, I don't know, correct the record. Do something instead of just tweeting, because that's what the squad does. And again, point is, all of independent media, from Revolutionary Blackout Network, Hardlands Media, Convo Couch, Mikasu Casa Network, Jimmy Dore, Frank Analysis, Jackson Hinkle, Kim Iverson, we've all been correct in calling out the hypocrisy of these lawmakers, the squad, and even TYT at this point. And while they are outraged, show me what else you're going to do. Because if you're just going to do this and try and mimic what we've been saying for years and what we've been covering for years, it's not going to contribute. Because don't tell us we got to vote Democrat. I'm not going to waste my vote on the Democratic Party because they've abandoned women at this point. They could have helped women. They could have helped out a lot of people of every single demographic in this country, even when they had the supermajority. But they chose not to, because at the end of the day, when you see a game match between the Harlem Globetrotters and Washington Generals, and when you see action being done in Washington, D.C. by the Republican Party and Democratic Party, know that that game between the Harlem Globetrotters and Washington Generals has more authenticity in it than anything you'll see in D.C. Lauren, final word.
I mean, I think that really, really sums it up. They don't do anything for us. They've not ever really done anything for us. They spend all their time on Twitter getting into beef instead of making laws. Like, that's something that's been annoying me for, I don't even know how long. Why do you have to, you have a comment on Twitter after 45 seconds after the first one goes up? Get off Twitter and do your job.